My name is Sierra Masri, and today I'm going to be presenting about the painting The Moon Goddess Chang. I have spent a majority of my life immersed in Chinese history and culture, especially in regards to art. Among said years, I've become familiar with many Chinese myths and legends, and how they have translated into many well-known modern holidays. My favorite story is the story of Chang, a goddess whose story has produced the now famous Mid-Autumn Festival or Moon Festival. Due to many traditional Chinese compositions containing both visual and written elements, I have become familiar with many Chinese poems as well. The story of Chang is no exception, having countless poems written about it by various famous poets. The most famously written poem, the one that I have become familiar with in the past, is titled Chang, written by Li Shangyin. The poem continues as such: 云母屏风烛影生，嫦娥渐落小星辰，嫦娥应回偷灵药，碧海青天夜夜星, which roughly translates to, on a mica screen, a candle casts dark shapes. The Milky Way slowly descends. The morning star is low. Chang must regret stealing the elixir of life. Blue sea and blue sky, night after night in her heart. I have not only been captivated by the story of Chang, but the stylistic qualities of many Chinese works as well. The prevalence of the holiday, along with my admiration for ancient Chinese paintings, are what inspired me to choose the piece, The Moon Goddess Chang, a painting demonstrated in the Met and as seen to the right. I will begin by elaborating on the details of the story, alongside its origins. Due to the story dating back countless of years, there are multiple incongruencies regarding the original details. An example of such is the confusion of Chang's title. In some versions of the story, Chang was the emperor's daughter, while others claim she was always a goddess. Regardless of such, the morals of the story and the primary events stay the same, which revolve around Chang and the betrayal to her husband Hou-Yi. Hou-Yi was said to be a masterful archer who saved the earth by shooting down 9 suns, leaving one as the sun we see today. Hou-Yi wanted to be immortal, so he ordered for an immortality elixir to be created. Once the elixir was created, Chang took the pills, which are often to be debated the product of an accident or an act of jealousy. Once she took the pills, she began ascending to the moon, in which Hou-Yi noticed the stolen elixir and tried to shoot her down with his arrows. Some believe Chang was cursed into becoming a 3-legged toad, while others believe she befriended the rabbit, in which they both reside on the moon for eternity. There is no definitive time as to when the story was written. However, some of the first visual representations date back to as early as the Ming Dynasty, which spanned between 1368 to 1644 AD. Moving on to the technique of the painting, little is known about the painting's process of creation, especially considering the artist to be unknown. However, through visual and contextual indicators, one can infer that it was created using the Gongbi style. The Gongbi style is most known for its narrative qualities, alongside its usage of bold colors and lines. The Gongbi technique often emphasizes the use of expressive and precise brushwork in order to better emphasize the realism of the piece. Similar to its line work, Gongbi also requires the use of bold and varying colors to achieve realism. The process begins with the establishment of a set of fine lines to outline the figure and to capture its likeness. It is then given delicate washes of ink and color to create indications of value while veering away from it being overbearing. There are specific elements of Gongbi that have to be adhered to in order to create its intended effect. The line work, for one, has to be fine and thin in order to capture the likeness of the figure while also retaining a sense of delicacy. The use of colors have to be carefully considered as well, as the use of neutral and diluted colors is often prioritized in order to replicate the natural colors of the subjects in which the artist may take reference. The painting, The Moon Goddess Chang, is a possible example of Gongbi, due to its thin black lines, which, similar to Gongbi, emphasizes attempts at capturing a figure's likeness while also retaining a delicate form. The colors used as well are neutral and less saturated, distinguishing the painting from other ancient Chinese styles. A point of comparison includes inkwash painting, or shui mo hua. This style relies solely on black ink to depict silhouettes, alongside simplified monochromatic shapes and compositions. Considering that inkwash painting was an equally popular style of painting as Gongbi during the possible period of time the piece was created, it is a fair assumption that the Moon Goddess Chang used similar visual priorities as the Gongbi technique in its creation. In order to create the actual painting, ancient painters relied on special forms of paint and ink. The most commonly used medium in Chinese paintings included water-based inks and pigments, usually on silk or paper. The black ink is usually sourced from lampblack, a material created by burning pine resins or tung oil. The color pigments, on the other hand, are made from various vegetable and mineral materials. Both are eventually mixed with a glue base, which is molded into a black form in which the artist must grind back into a liquid to be used for painting. They often utilized an inkstone and an ink stick for this process. With a special form in which the pigments can be ground using water from a designated well, the Chinese inkstone and ink stick were crucial to the use of their, at the time, very demanding medium. Water would be placed in the well form of the inkstone, while the block was placed on the stone. With a combination of dragging and grinding motions, the artist would use the ink stick to combine the water from the well with the ink block in order to reach the correct consistency. As for the way the painting is displayed, the moon goddess Chang is painted on a hanging scroll. The distinction between Western and Eastern artistic traditions is often the way in which their work is displayed. A majority of Eastern art is not meant for constant year-round display. Most of their art is therefore done on scrolls, which allows for art to be easily displayed and stored. The scroll accessibility is not the only important factor, as its physical form plays a key feature in the painting's composition. The scroll offers for an enhanced narrative element to a piece that spans beyond just the subjects of the painting itself. The scroll itself acts as an intimate medium through its display and action it takes to open it. The action of physically opening a scroll can create an intimate feeling between the viewer and the work. It simulates being told a story, that the opener of the scroll is physically opening the story to be read. Through the included poetry of Chinese works to the intimate acts associated with the scroll, everything about the painting The Moon Goddess Chang is meant to be a narrative containing its own poem by the famous calligraphy artist Tang. The poem reads as such: She was long ago a resident of the Moon Palace, where phoenixes and cranes gathered and embroidered banners fluttered in heavenly fragrance. Chang, in love with the gifted scholar, breaks off for him the topmost branch of the cassia tree. It is no surprise that the story of Chang has become such a beacon in Chinese culture, being one of its most well-known folktales and holidays. Through its insistence on creating a narrative by its technique, composition, and medium, the painting The Moon Goddess Chang demonstrates just how important folklore and storytelling has been throughout Chinese history and culture. The importance of folklore even transcends that of ancient times, as the still widely celebrated Mid-Autumn Festival continues the encouragement of the passing of traditional stories. The story of Chang proves how entire cultures and traditions can derive from individual stories, such as the moon cakes eaten during the Mid-Autumn Festival, and the tradition of lighting and releasing lanterns. These stories would not have been so easily passed without the assistance of ancient Chinese artists and their efficient and packaged forms of storytelling. Each scroll contains a narrative that, by being well preserved, has the potential to make any story immortal. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you are able to learn more about ancient Chinese storytelling, painting, and traditions.